Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. We begin in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, the one whose mercy overcomes all of his other qualities, the most forgiving, the most kind, the most generous. And may the best and choicest peace and blessings be upon his prophet, his messenger, our example, our guide, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'm really happy to be with you today on this Friday, beautiful day, windy, allergy-ridden. And I want to share with you a story in the Quran where Allah speaks to us about an incident that took place between Sulaiman, the leader of one of the largest empires and kingdoms the world has ever known, and one member of his army. I'm sure we all have heard and read and learned and discussed about the story of Khutba. For our purposes, think of it as a woodpecker. Allah says in the Quran, in Surah An-Nahl, one day he looked in vain for a particular one of the birds. And so he, Sulaiman, said, how is it that I do not see the hudhud? Or could he be among the absent? If so, if he's among the absent, I will punish him most severely, or will kill him, unless he bring me a convincing excuse. But the hudhud arrived but a short while later. And when it came, it said, I've seen something that you have not seen. And I have come to you from Sheba with a tiding sure. I want to look at these verses from the lens of leadership. As we go through the story, think of the roles of community that you have in your life. When I use the word community, think of it in the example of your family, the community of your family, the community of your co-workers, your company, this community here, and our community as Americans, the Valley and LA, and members of America. This leader and commander-in-chief led an army that was tens, if not hundreds, of thousands of members large. The only man who was able to control or communicate with not only humans, jinn, birds, and animals. So his army is made up of all these different creatures. Several thousands. And he looks over his army, his team, and he notices one member of this team. We've all seen woodpeckers. They're like the size of a hand. He notices one member of this team is missing, and he inquires about this member of the team. The first lesson, when we look at our community, our family, our work, our community here in the Valley, are we in sync? Is our finger on the pulse of the people that are in our community? Or are we aloof and disconnected? If our son asks, Daddy, I'm going to be in a play at school. Are you going to be there? Are we going to say, yes, I'll be there in the front row to support you and to cheer you on? Or are we going to be in the back coming in late on our phone, in a meeting, checking our email on our Blackberries? The only way that we can be in sync with our team, our family, our community, is to have a mindful investment of time. And I'll give you a few examples. There's nothing probably that is more important for a family than the few minutes at a dinner table every night. I don't need to quote you studies because there's been studies done about the value of family development and cohesion that happens as a result of the families that choose to spend time together at the dinner table. I'm personally not big on this. I wasn't raised big on this. I used to be out of the house most of the time during dinner time. My wife is huge on this. And she enforced that policy where we are together at the dinner table every night. And this is the time, this is that little investment of time where you have a back and forth, unscripted, just how's everything going? You have a conversation with each other. It doesn't have to be forced, but this is a quality investment of time if you want to have a pulse and understand what's happening with the members of your community. Second, those of us who are married and have kids, who is the last person you think of? Yourself. Usually, you're the last person you think of because your family always comes first. Who's the second last person you probably think of? Is your spouse, because your kids come before your spouse, for most of us. Maybe I should just speak for myself. One very important investment of time is to have date nights. You need to have quality alone time with your spouse. Without that, there is no investment in this relationship. If everything that happens in the family is centered around the kids, centered around work, centered around things that are happening at the home, that is not a quality relationship. Unless there's one-on-one time without the kids, where you can focus on each other and not talk about the kids all the time, we are not investing enough in the relationship with our spouse. And third example, and I'm using in this context family, with our kids. And I'm speaking to both individuals here who are children without a family, meaning you have parents but you don't have your own family, and those of us who are parents of children. When our kids are young, they are desperate for our attention. Parents, you know that. A lot of times we sacrifice that attention for other things like work or business, etc. And sometimes we take our kids out and we spend time with them. But there's one tweak. If you do, it'll help tremendously in the investment you have with your kids, which is to have one-on-one. Not both or all your kids, if you happen to have more than one kid. One-on-one. There's no better way of showing how much I value you and how much I want to give you my time than to say, let me take you out for ice cream, or let's go to the park, or let's go to Chuck E. Cheese, or whatever it might be. Not with all your kids, not with 2 or 4 or whatever. And not even with your husband or your wife. Just one-on-one. One parent, one child. And lastly, we have more than enough to complain about in our community. It's not enough for us to just complain and look at the shortcomings we have. The last example in being in touch, in sync with our communities, give yourself 1 hour a week, 1 hour a month. No matter how busy we are, we can give 1 hour a month, where you invest in your community, whether it be here at ISWV, any other center, or with a civic group in the valley. Unless you and I take an active role in getting to know the issues of the community and doing something about it, we can't complain about changes not happening. Second, this story of Sulaiman and Hudhud teaches us about leaders being people-centered. Sulaiman didn't take it for granted that he had a huge army. Each person had a unique role, and each person in that team had unique value. If someone's absent, it's noticed. And I'll give you an example. We make it a rule in our house where the kids have to do one thing to set up the dinner table. If they don't do that one thing, we notice something's wrong. There's either water that's not there, or the plates aren't there, everything else is there. But each one of them has one particular thing that they're doing. And if they don't do it, the whole family knows something isn't there, and whoever was responsible for that didn't do it. If kids don't feel like they have a responsibility in the family, if they don't feel like they are a member, like where they're adding something valuable to the family, you can expect them to not have great self-esteem. There's no other place than home where self-esteem is built first. So don't treat your kids as kids, meaning they have no way to participate in the family. Give them responsibilities, and if they don't do it, they'll know that they didn't do it. And you'll know they didn't do it. And it gives them ownership of that responsibility. If I don't do it, then I know the family is going to be affected because I didn't set the table right. Third, accountability goes both ways. Sulaiman is holding Hudhud responsible. The army is about to go on a mission. A member of the team is not there. That member of the team has a particular task and a job. He knows that if this person falls through, the plan is going to be incomplete. Accountability is usually looked at in a bad way. We're like, why are you blaming me for this or that? Or I always feel blamed when somebody holds me accountable. Accountability, turn it, twist it, where accountability is a way to show value and love for that person. If we aren't holding somebody accountable, if we aren't holding one of our teammates accountable, or we're not holding one of our family members accountable, what we're saying without saying it is, it's okay if you don't do it. It doesn't matter anyway. You don't have any particular value. If you mess up, if you don't show up, it's okay, it doesn't matter. But if we hold each other accountable, we're showing that there's value in that person as being part of the team, whether it be in the family or here as a community. And I'll give you an example. When I was young, and I'm sure most of you can attest to this, I'm from India. So in most third world countries, and I'm not saying India is a third world country, whatever world country it is. When I was growing up, I was 6 or 7. Everybody around me smoked. Every guy that I knew smoked. From teens to my cousins, my uncles, my neighbors, every man that I knew as a 6-year-old, 7-year-old smoked. The only person who didn't smoke that I knew was my dad. And one day I asked him, like, why don't you smoke? I didn't ask him, like, is it okay? Or I just asked him, like, why don't you smoke? So he told me, it's not healthy, and I don't want to do it. I have no idea, like, if he was saying it out of wisdom or if he was, just being real. But that hit me real hard to where now, being 33 years old, I still remember that story when I was 6 or 7. I had mad respect for my father. Because although everybody else was doing it, he made it a personal decision of his not to do it. And there was no better example for me for not smoking than that. And when I used to ask him that, I asked him hoping that, he would say it's not a big deal. Because when I was 6 or 7, I literally used to pick up like the buds of cigarettes that were done in the living room, and I would smoke them. And I got the worst part of it because it's at the very end. And I did it because everybody else around me did it. But as soon as my dad said he didn't do it because he personally didn't want to do it, like he was able to not think of it as peer pressure, he just didn't want to do it. That gave me serious respect because he set an example. And I couldn't argue with him about that ever again. The next example or lesson about leadership. When, in the tafsir, when Sulaiman called for Hudhud and he came, Hudhud, when he came close to Sulaiman to speak with him. Imagine that you're late for work and there's a CEO of your company, multi-billion-dollar company, very upset. Where the heck is person X? If I come in, I'm going to be, cowering behind a person or two, or I'm going to be as quiet as I can. Hopefully he's not going to notice anything, because I'm afraid. But Hudhud, this little creature, came close to Sulaiman to speak with him. What does that say? Sulaiman is not a dictator. Sulaiman is not a harsh leader. The first quality of Sulaiman is that he's a just and merciful leader. Looking at our families, looking at our communities, is that something we can say for ourselves? How close are we to being just with our families, to being gentle with our families? Even when he's upset, the members of his team aren't worried to come close to him to talk to him. And I'll give you one example, and this is totally, it was unintentional. My son did something that really made me angry. And I was upset with him for half the day. And he went to bed and I tucked him in. And I told him, it doesn't matter what you do. If you do something bad or if you mess up, even if I'm angry, I'm still going to love you. There's nothing you can do that I won't love you. And I just said this because, I just wanted to just make sure that he knew. But to him, a 6-year-old, it was like an epiphany. He woke up, he sat up from the bed and he said, "You mean even when you're angry, you're still going to love me?" Kids have no idea. Kids only read our faces and they read our actions. They don't understand emotions to the level that we do as adults. But this issue of mercy, there's nothing more important than that. As a member of the team or a member of the family. And he said, "So you're going to love me no matter what I do?" I said, "Yes. I'll be upset, I'll be angry, I'm not going to be happy, but I'm still going to love you." And that, he didn't understand it. But now he does. He knows that it's not actions, it's not mistakes that matter. It's our ability to be able to understand each other and talk to each other and learn from that mistake. And when Sulaiman was literally being one of the best examples of this, in his position as a leader, individuals who were small, regular members of the army weren't afraid to come talk to him face to face when they had made a mistake. And lastly, there's a time in every person's life where you ask yourself, what is my purpose? What is my mission? What is it that I'm trying to do? There's all this conversations about midlife crisis. Everybody asks, and the midlife crisis can happen at 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, but it happens in every person's life. You ask yourself, what is my purpose? What is it that I'm trying to do? I don't know if I'm going in the direction that I want to go in. But Hudhud showed by example that our purpose is to serve. Allah says about Muhammad ﷺ, "I have not sent you but to be a mercy to mankind." Not Muslims, not the weak, not the poor, not the rich, mankind. And our purpose as the leader of our family, a member of the family, at work or in part of this community, as American Muslims, is to serve. To serve our communities, whichever context that may be in. Make dua to Allah. Oh Allah, please have mercy upon our souls and forgive us for our shortcomings. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Takeaways. A few things that, if I could share with you as takeaways from this khutbah. Number one, with this lesson of Hudhud and Sulaiman, there's 3 things I want to share with you. Number one, leadership is a mentality and it's an attitude, not a title. Number 2, leadership does not need permission. You don't need to ask to step up. You don't need to ask permission from imam or a scholar or a person X or a person Y or anything to do something good, you need no permission. You know, a lot of times we're worried that I don't have knowledge, or we say I haven't been involved. And I'm speaking, for example, in the context of community now. This first half, it was more about the family. I'm talking now in the context of community, ISWV, the Valley, etc. Or it's not my place. No, leadership does not require permission from anyone. And leadership doesn't mean that I'm doing it because someone has authorized me. Third, don't accept the status quo. Be open to change. As members of the community, we have to be open to change. Suleiman, the one whose kingdom spanned more than any other kingdom in the world, this little bird, what did he say when he came to him? He said, I have seen something that you have not yet seen. That takes gall for a little bird to come to tell the ruler of the largest kingdom in the world, I've seen something that you haven't seen. That shows that this person has comfortable enough of a relationship and understands the value as a team member that I can say something if there's an opportunity for change, if there's an opportunity for us to get better, if there's an opportunity for us to do something good. And as a leader, he's totally open to it. He doesn't have the ego that says, how dare you? You know who I am? He's open. He gets the information, he verifies it, and he takes action. Be open to change. And I say this for us as members of this community in ISWV, as well as members of the Muslim community in the Valley, as well as Americans. Do not accept the status quo. And you know, one of the problems, unfortunately, in our community is that we have the same people who are on the boards of organizations and masajids and centers, and the board just circulates over and over. It's the same people who are responsible for events or activities, and it's the same circle that does things over and over. Unless there's injection of new blood, new ideas, things will not change. If you are frustrated that you don't see X happening, why the heck are we not talking about this and this? You can't expect the people who are doing the same thing to come up with amazing new ideas, unless there are new people who are adding new ideas. That's our responsibility as members of the community. And as leadership of organizations and institutions, it's a responsibility that we're open to ideas and we're open to going into new places and not being worried about making mistakes. It's okay to make a mistake, but what's not okay is if we don't try things as a community. If we don't open ourselves to collaborating, if we don't open ourselves to being bigger and better and looking at the greater good, and what do we want to do in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? How are we going to get there? The one way we're not going to get there is if you don't step up. When Hudhud stepped up, he had no role. He didn't have a title. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't seek help. And he came with a new idea. He said, I found this place that you don't know about. Let's go check it out. And as a leader, he said, great, let's do it. At the end, it's our responsibility. If we see opportunity for good, let's make that happen. You have strengths that the person next to you doesn't. And you can't expect the person next to you to do things as good as you when you're totally different people. If you can bring something to the table that's unique, it's our responsibility to step up and bring that. And it's not a burden, it's an opportunity, it's something I should be proud about, because I'm good at something that I can offer that others may not be able to. And if you bring it and somebody doesn't take it, that's okay. You go somewhere else and you make it happen, or you make it happen on your own. And we're lucky that we are part of an open community here at ISWV. And the people here have been working diligently to make and expand the community and bring new ideas. However, it's very limited. It can't grow without your support. And we can't grow as a community without collaborating and being open to ideas and stepping up and becoming leaders without titles and without permission. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. Oh Allah, forgive us for our shortcomings. Strengthen us and help us to use our passion and our strengths for the good of our families and our communities. Allow us to learn from our mistakes. Give us the strength to put aside our egos and to work for the betterment of each other and to be people who serve. O Allah, give blessing, resources, and strength to our community, to each other, and help us to make the lives of our children better than the lives that we were given. Ameen.